What's up, friends? I'm Rachel from Bestie Bags, and today I'm going to show you how to take these old jeans and turn them into these tote bags. If sewing a bag or working with denim worries you, don't be afraid. You can totally do this, and I'm going to show you how. It's a small tote, but it's perfect for grabbing your everyday things, tossing them in, and going out the door. I've got in here a cell phone, keys, pretty big wallet, a bag full of every single cord I could ever think of, a notebook and a pen, my Kindle, lotion, and chapstick, and there's still lots of room inside. I'm going to go get our materials, and while I do that, if you could like and subscribe down below, I'd really be jazzed. And if you click the bell beside subscribe, then you'll get a notification every time I make a new video. Let's get started. The first thing you'll need is a pair of jeans. I did use two different pairs for two different colors. You totally don't need to do that if you don't want to. Quilting rulers and a rotary cutter. You can also use the ruler and draw straight lines first and cut them with scissors. A ruler for marking boxed corners and things like that. For your sewing machine needle, I like to use a size 16 or a size 18 universal or denim needle. You'll need some thread. Today I'm just using all-purpose polyester thread. You'll want something to mark your fabric with. I always have two on hand, one that's a light color and one that's a dark color, because they will show up differently on different fabrics. The next thing we're going to use are either pins or clips. The hump jumper is a plastic tool that you can put underneath the foot of your sewing machine to get you over a large bump. I'm going to show you this when we use it a little better, but if you don't have this, don't worry about it. You do not need to have this today. I'm actually going to show you how to just take a scrap of the jeans and use the same method. I used webbing instead of a piece of jeans for the handles just because I liked the way it looked and I had some on hand. This is cotton webbing. You do not have to use cotton webbing. I'm going to show you how to use the jeans material to make the handles today, just so you have an option. I always have one of these. This is a seam ripper. I wish that I didn't always use one of these, but yeah, most of the time I need it. Next thing are scissors. You're going to want a larger, sharp pair of fabric scissors to cut apart the jeans. This is a smaller pair of scissors that I use for cutting threads or whatever while I'm at my machine. This is totally optional, but this is a pair of curved embroidery scissors, and I really like this for cutting really close to stitches. So I really like this for cutting really close on removing the pockets. And the last thing that's optional but really helpful is a little bit of double-sided tape. This is 1/8 of an inch. Let's chop up those jeans. So I cut off the waistband, the cuffs, and then I cut along the inside seam, like the crotch seam of the legs. That'll give you one big piece of leg fabric so you have enough to work with. So when you're cutting off your pocket, make sure you leave a little bit of fabric at the top of your pocket. Time to trim up your pockets, and I find that easier to do with the back with these little curved scissors. They get really close to the stitches, so you're just going to get as close to the stitches as you can without cutting the stitches. And then at the top, I actually cut just a little bit inwards at the top instead of leaving extra on the sides. Out of your denim, you're going to need two 12-inch by 10-inch pieces for the main part of your bag, one 12-inch by 6-inch piece for the bottom of your bag, and two 4-inch strap pieces if you're making your own straps. I usually make those somewhere between 36 and 40 inches. You may have to sew two strips together to get a long piece. So here's all the pieces we have cut out and ready to go that we need for the bag. You've got your two pieces that are 12 inches wide by 10 inches high. And then you've got your bottom piece, which I guess technically goes like this. This one is 12 inches wide by 6 inches high. Then you have your two straps, which should be somewhere between 36 and 40 inches long and 4 inches wide. Again, you may need to cut 2 strips and sew them together to get a long strip for your handle. That's totally fine. Last, you have your 2 pocket pieces, which you have trimmed up close on the sides. Leave a little fabric in the top and cut 2 little notches out of the top corners. So the first thing I'm going to do is just draw a chalk line right down the center of my main piece. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line from the top about 1.5 inches down. I am going to draw a line at 2 inches from the edge of the piece, like this. Okay? Do the same thing. So if your pocket is wider, you could change this, but I wouldn't come any closer than about 1.5 inches from the edge. So do the same thing with your other main piece. Draw a line down the center, a line 1.5 inches from the top, and the 2 lines on the side. On this particular one, I'm going 2 inches in, but if you want, you can go 1.5 inches if your pocket doesn't fit in there. So when we're going to make our straps, I take my 4-inch wide piece, and what I do is I line up my ruler to the middle. So in our case, the middle is at 2 inches. And I draw a line, and I keep going the whole way down the strap. Okay, so if you have some double-sided tape, you can put double-sided tape here on either end if you want to. So basically what we do is we take one end and we fold it in towards that, and you're just going to iron it the whole way along. Okay, and then the other side, you're going to do the same thing. If you have double-sided tape, then you can take the double-sided tape, okay, just fold it in. Keep going. And the last step is just to fold it in half. And again, you can use the double-sided tape or you can use your iron just to hold it. And I like to kind of stop, put clips in as I go. Okay guys, it's time to sew our straps. So what I like to do is I put a mark up here, and this just lets me know that that's the top. Because what I do is I sew 1/8 of an inch from the edge on the side with the folds, and then I sew 1/8 of an inch from the edge on the other side. But I always put this in first. So instead of sewing this all the way to the bottom and then maybe grabbing the bottom and sticking the bottom in, you come back to the top again and put the top in. That will keep your strap from getting wavy, okay? And then once you have this done, you're just going to repeat the same thing for the other strap. So 1/8 of an inch, and don't forget the back stitch. To attach your pocket to the main panel piece, you're going to take your pocket, you've already trimmed it out, and you're going to draw a line right between the 2 notches that you cut out. Or really, this is a line that is on top of where the pocket ends on the front. So you're going to draw a line straight across and then draw a mark right there in the center. That's going to help you line it up. So what you're going to do is you're going to line it up with that 1.5-inch line you drew earlier, and then line the center line up with the center line you drew earlier. This way, you know your pocket is on straight, but make sure it's flipped up in the air like this. Pin it on that little extra fabric piece that we left on there. I like to turn it and double check because look, so crooked. So I had to unpin it and adjust it much better. So just stick your pin in there. Now you're going to sew about 1/8 of an inch from that line towards the extra flap. Do not sew too close to the line or you will sew your pocket shut. Then you're going to remove your pins and fold it down. Don't pull like this. Just fold it down gently and flat. Make sure everything is lined up and make sure your point of your pocket is lined up with the center line. Pin that on. Now you'll sew around the outer lines of the pocket to secure it to the panel. You can choose to sew over an existing line or start a new line of stitching. I like starting a new line of stitching because it's denim and I like lots of lines in it. And guys, don't judge me that these pockets are different. I had a little bit of a technical difficulty when filming. I had to go back and put a fake pocket clip in. Guys, now we're going to attach our straps to the main part of the bag. So you have your line here at 2 inches in or 1.5 inch, wherever you wanted to put your strap. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my straps and I'm going to line them up with the bottom of the bag and the top. I'm going to put a few pins in here. And I'm actually going to take a ruler and draw a line just in line with this pocket. And that's where we're going to stop sewing. So you're going to sew a line up here, across here, and back down again. Now you can just sew over the old line if you want, or you can come in a little further and give yourself a second line of stitching. I'm not going to line mine up. This is at 1/8 of an inch, so I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to come in 1/4 of an inch, go across the top, and back down across the bottom. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side here. Just make sure that your straps are not twisted up here, that everything looks normal. So line it up with the bottom. Putting a pin in to hold it. Kind of line it up here. And use another pin. And of course I put that pin kind of in my way, but that's okay. So draw your line. Okay, so you're going to sew both sides, and then when you're done with that, you're going to sew the other piece to be the same way. Just remember, do not sew your strap the whole way up to the top. So now you should have 2 finished main pieces and the bottom piece. Excuse all my denim lint. What you're going to do is take one of your main pieces and line up your bottom piece to it, and we are going to put these right sides together. You can pin them as much or as little as you like. And then I'm going to sew with a 3/8 seam allowance. Back stitch at the beginning and the end. So the next step is to fold the bottom down, and your seam on the inside should be towards you. Okay, so towards the outside, you're going to kind of fold this over with your hand. And then we are going to sew 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on here straight to the end. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our other piece and we're going to put that right sides together. Line it up. And you're going to sew it again at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then you're going to fold your seam towards the bottom of your bag. And then underneath, see, here's my seam. Can you see maybe? I'm not sure. There you go. So here's the seam, and it's going to stay towards the bottom. Don't let it come up. It's towards the bottom. And for me, that's kind of the way it naturally wants to lay anyways, so I don't really have to do much fighting here. And then again, 1/8 of an inch top stitch. So we have one big long piece, and we are going to fold it right sides together. Seam where the main part of your fabric meets the bottom, I like to make sure that they're going to look good in the end. So I put those two together first. And then clip them. Okay. Then I like to tuck my straps inside so they're not in my way. So we got these clipped together and the straps are tucked down inside. What we're going to do is we're going to sew each side at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance from the top to the bottom. So I'm not having any trouble at all here with my machine, but if you do, this is a part where you might need what we call a hump jumper. So the one I showed you earlier was plastic, but if you don't have that one, that's fine. What you can do is just fold a couple of pieces of denim up, lift up your foot and put this behind it. If you need it higher, fold a little bit more. But what this does is lift the foot up so that it doesn't struggle going over that hump where you have a couple of layers going together, okay? So you're just going to keep going. We are going to box the corners of the bag. So you want to measure 1 inch from the bottom line and 1 inch from your seam line, and just draw yourself a little box just like that. Same thing on the other side. I'm going to cut this out right on the line. All right, then you're going to pick up the bag, pull your two sides apart. I like to open up the seam here so everything stays nice and straight. So you're going to clip it. Same thing on the other side. So you're going to open it up, and then what I do is take my fingers and I'm just sort of wiggling it between my fingers until I can get it to go straight. Okay. Clip it. Okay. Then we're going to sew these straight across at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. You definitely want to remember to back stitch on these. You want these to be nice and strong. Now your bag has nice square corners. It is worth being said here that these seams are probably going to fray a little bit over time like denim does. I'm not worried about it. If you have a machine with a zigzag stitch, you could do a zigzag over each one of these after we stitch them. But for me, it's on the inside of the bag. I'm not really concerned if it frays a little bit over time. Doesn't necessarily matter to me. So the next thing we're going to do is just finish up the top. If you have some double-sided tape, it might help you out. It's not necessarily something that you have to use though, but it will be a little bit easier for you if you had double-sided tape. What we're going to do is roll this 1/4 of an inch, and then we're going to roll it another 1/4 of an inch. We're just trying to hide this, raw seam on the inside of the top. So for me, I do the seams first. I open them up and then I fold them. If you would like to draw the lines on the 1/4 inch lines, you can certainly do that. I don't. I find once I get it started, it goes okay for me. And frankly, I'm not worried about it being complete and utter total perfection. If you don't have any clips, you could use pins. I use clips whenever I can, just because I stab myself with pins more than I do clips, because clips don't have points. I'm not sure if you knew that. Okay, so now you're going to do a second roll. Same way, and I do the same thing. I start again with my seam. We are going to sew 1/4 of an inch seam allowance all the way around the bag. And what I like to do is I like to sew it like this while it's still inside out. That way the prettiest part of my top stitching is going to show on the right side of my bag. I like to start on a side. So you're just going to sew for a while and then pick everything up and drop it back down again. Here's another place where I have a big lump where I'm really might need a hump jumper if I had a machine that struggles with those. So we will put this in just so you can see. So you just slide in the back. See how it's now even? The back of the foot is now even with the front where it was starting to go up that big lump. So you just sew, and if you need it, you can scooch it back underneath again to go a little further. And just let it go. That's it. All you're going to do now is turn your bag inside out, and you made a great tote bag from an old pair of jeans. So here it is. Your bag is all finished and ready to go. If you guys think you would be brave enough to try making another bag with maybe a lining or a magnet snap or some other kind of additions on it, let me know in the comments down below, because I can show you how to do that too. Thanks for sewing with me.